There we go.
Hello, and welcome to Legalbytes. If you're new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel, we explain the law one bite at a time. We don't give legal advice, but we do talk about how the law works and try to look into our crystal ball to see how things might turn out. If you're enjoying this on YouTube, we'd love it if you could like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with friends, all the great YouTube-y stuff. And if you want to listen while out and about, we're now offering our live streams in podcast form where you can leave a rating and review.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Take on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so on Locals, Patreon, or by becoming a YouTube member, or by buying some really awesome Legalbytes merch. Again, all links are in the description below. And with that said, let's get into it.
What am I watching?
All right. That's my intro. Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to another weekly edition of Latest in the Law. I apologize for starting so late. We are like Nick Rekieta late. That's how late we are today. I'm having some really bad internet issues, as you can probably see by the grainy pixelation of my screen here. And so I really hope that this live stream doesn't turn out as terribly as other ones have in the past. Good Logic was there for that one. It was pretty funny, but also a little bit painful for me. So anyhow, I have with me, for anyone that is listening and not watching, I have Mr. Kurt from Uncivil Law. Thank you for being here, Kurt. And I have Mr. Joe Neerman from the channel Good Logic.
Woo in the house. What up?
How are you guys doing? Are you having a better day than me?
Yeah,
I think everyone on the internet is having a better day than you.
Yeah,
but yeah, thank God.
Thank God. I think good. So.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Alita. I know it's rough.
Oh,
I was there.
It's okay. It happened.
Yeah, you see, she's like it's like she's in like Dubai and like a 9-second delay. So this is like when they have, like they have those reporters on location in Dubai.
Yeah. So what's going on there?
And you should put your finger to your ear, like it's coming through now. Like that's what they always do. Like that's right, Jim. And
it's like my internet is having to go like around the other side of the moon and to come all the way back to the United States and then go around the moon again to where I am to go back again.
Right, you need to rely on the theory of relativity to synchronize with us. So
something like that.
I had my very first appearance on Eric Hunley when I was on my very first appearance with Eric Hunley. I had not yet purchased the proper equipment for live streaming, and I went on there, and that's when I met Viva Fry, and the entire time I was like you are now, and I was like blacking out and then popping back in, and Viva was there, and every time I wanted to say something, because that in Eric Hunley, like sometimes the chatter is going, and it's like 4 seconds after everyone finished talking about a topic, they would see me be like, and Viva would be like pointing down at me, like that everyone should stop and give me like a moment, which was kind of nice, kind of humiliating, but kind of nice. So he was trying to let me get a word in edgewise. So yeah, I totally
had a similar experience because I had like audio issues because my earbuds or something, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I had to it was like picking up a weird fan noise. So I had to keep everything on mute in between things. So, and I already have a bit of an issue, getting a word in edgewise when there's a bunch of lawyers on stream, right? That's my regular critique from viewers is you need to just get yourself in there. Just, elbows out, just get in there, get in the conversation.
Otherwise Joel talk the whole time. Your show, so
yeah,
we're gonna,
but, same thing. It was like Viva was super sweet about it to be like, hey, over there. So yeah. Anyhow, we have a super chat in Fantasy I Die. It says, Bites is my favorite ever since she mentioned she's a Tim Dillon fan. I am. Law and crime is a fake business. Yes or yes. Life in the big city. Yes. True. Yes or yes. The answer is yes. Fake business. I love Tim Dillon. He's great. Anyhow, so let's get into we've got a lot to talk about. I feel like I increasingly say that each week because I've started to pack in a lot of subjects, and hopefully, like I said, hopefully this live stream doesn't end up too chaotically with my internet situation, and we can get to all the topics before I have to like short or something. But let's talk about Tiger King. Have you guys heard about this?
I've not heard the latest and greatest on Tiger King.
No, you need to inform us because I don't. All I know, I watched the first season, but I didn't see season 2, and I don't know any new developments that are happening. So
I have not seen season 2 either, but I have been following Joe Exotic on Twitter. I'm assuming someone else runs his Twitter for him since he is actually in jail, in prison. So yeah, so I'm assuming it's someone else that is running it for him. But he has a legal team that is also regularly tweeting about how they're trying to get his sentence reduced and how they're trying to. Now, I think just today they filed a motion for a new trial. So I'll give a little bit of the background. Okay, so if you've watched season 1, you know that there was this whole plot that he got picked up in to have a certain person do a certain thing to Carol Baskin for money. In other words, he wanted to hire someone to kill her. Is the story? So his attorneys still maintain that was a he wasn't serious about it. There were apparently 2 people that he was convicted of I guess soliciting to murder her, and one of them turned out to be a federal agent, and he apparently there is audio of him offering $10,000 and then to follow her in the mall in like a parking lot of the mall or something like that, and like hit her over the head and like be done with it or something. But I think what they're saying is that he wasn't serious about it. He was kind of more being hyperbolic or whatever, and so that like shouldn't really be a proper conviction. So I think I
don't remember. Was the killer? I don't remember from the season. Was the killer an actual glowy, or was the killer turned? I think he was a glowy, and I remember thinking like, you're getting if you're ever in. I'm not trying to help anyone kill someone, but if you're ever interested, my thought would be, and this is not legal advice, clearly, definitely not. This is like anti-legal advice, but I would just think,
don't listen to it.
A common don't listen to anything I'm about to say. Everyone just close your ears. A common sense thing would be like, if someone says, hey, for $100, I'll kill that person for you. The price is probably too low. I think it was you said 5,000, but even that, I would think offing someone, I would think if they're charging anything less than 10, it's gotta be a glowy, right? I mean, wouldn't you think that that's way too cheap for someone to embroil themselves in the potential life sentence exposure type of thing if they're charging you anything under 5 digits? That's just my thought. I don't know.
Here's
you can't take care of fixing your credit score for under 10,000, and you're gonna fix a problem like getting rid of someone for 5.
So what would you charge?
Well,
what is your going rate, Joe?
My rate is considerably higher, but yeah. No, I'm sorry. I cut you off, Alita.
I was going to say this is the part where I admit that I have seen this term pop up so many times, and I have never asked anyone what it actually means. And I know it's on these kinds of conversations, but I don't actually know what it means. What is a glowy?
It's a federal agent.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure,
but like, where does that come from?
Term. Yeah,
I don't know the origin of it, but yeah. I only learned that like a month ago, so I'm not that far ahead of you. Even though if you look at our respective incidents at the moment, it looks like I'm like 9 years ahead of you, but I'm really just a month ahead of you. So are you in like Czechoslovakia? Your internet is basically saying Eastern Europe. That's what your internet is saying.
It is a part of the world where sometimes internet is great and sometimes internet is not so great. So I'm sorry because I completely froze out during the explanation of what a glowy actually is.
Federal agent.
Okay.
I'll mime it.
So that's just okay. All right. Cool. I guess I can accept that. So
and that I learned that only a month ago. So I'm not ahead of you.
Got
I
it.
feel embarrassed.
Got it. All right. So I think it's not disputed that this person was a federal agent.
Okay.
So I don't think anyone is fighting that. The question is, to what extent was this like a legitimate sort of God, what's the word for it? Where they have agents that come in, a sting operation. To what extent was this a legitimate sting operation, and to what extent was this an entrapment kind of situation?
Right.
Yep.
Now, entrapment is a tough defense.
Yes, it is.
In general, it's a very, very tough defense. First of all, you cannot even rely on entrapment if you have a predilection toward it.
That's you're done. If you have a predilection, you're done.
And in other words, if someone is proven to have a predilection towards a particular crime, in that case, and they say, well, you trapped me into doing it, they say that your predilection wipes away any entrapment, and basically the government could do whatever they want to entrap you into a crime. Right. And your defense of entrapment is something that you can't even offer before the jury. So and considering how many times this guy said he wanted her dead, that's a tough road.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think that the Whitmer case, the Whitmer kidnapping plot case, I think that one seems to be a stronger case for entrapment.
Yes.
Rather than I mean, because they had multiple instances where they were like, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do anything like that. And then the person that was pushing for it was actually an informant. So here it is a little bit more difficult, I think, to say that there would be an entrapment situation here because of what has been readily apparent on Netflix on the first season, right? Granted, there could have been quite a bit of editing in there that would have made things look a different way. So I'm very curious to see, because I'm very curious to see the motion that they filed today. It should be showing up. I mean, it'll probably show up tomorrow on Pacer, but it's supposed to be a very, very hefty motion. But that would be crazy if they actually do end up getting a new trial to see if they can free Joe Exotic from prison, because otherwise their most recent attempt. So he was convicted of this murder for hire situation, and then he was sentenced to 22 years. And then they appealed that sentencing because they said that it was improper the way that they sentenced him, because they sentenced him for two separate crimes, even though the two were, I guess he talked to two different people about Carol Baskin in both situations. And so they said that because it was for the same end, that the sentencing shouldn't have been expanded. It should have just counted as one. They should have overlapped.
That's sort of the typical rule, although it can be heavily modified in terms of whether sentences should be served consecutively, one on top of each other, or concurrently at the same time. Yeah. So the typical rule, and again, you have to be very careful with this, is if you serve them concurrently when it's part of what you call the same criminal transaction. And that is basically when things are closely related in time and purpose, for lack of a better description. So you're doing things as part of a contemporaneous thing. Like, I don't know, I'll give you an example. You go to rob the bank, you have a getaway driver. So there's a whole number of felonies that are being committed here by a whole number of people probably, but they're all part of the same common criminal transaction, to use the proper term. So that's what you're looking for. So he's arguing that because these were closely related in purpose, they go into the same end, therefore concurrently would be appropriate, which is the typical rule, but has been modified by statute in some cases. Perhaps most notably, for example, in Colorado recently with that whole trucker case where he got 110 years and then the governor had to reduce it to 10, right? Those sentences stacked on top of each other, even though it's all related to the same thing. I mean, how could it not be? It's all related to one vehicle fatality, but Colorado modified the rule, which caused that excessive sentence. So there's a counterexample for you.
Yeah.
You would think that.
So that's a great explanation.
I don't recall. Did he talk to two different people about killing her? Because that sort of mitigates, that shows predilection, right? I mean, and here's the other thing. And if you want to take the side of the government, which I know no one ever wants to take, that's a very unpopular side to take. But if you want to take the side of the government, so you're trying to figure out, does he really have a predilection or not? So his defense would be, all those times that I was saying I want her dead, I was speaking euphemistically, I was speaking in exaggerated tones. Kurt has said he wants Good Logic dead 100 times. That doesn't mean that he would
reached 100 yet. I think you're giving me too much credit.
But that doesn't mean that he has a predilection towards killing me. But one would think that only someone who has this predilection would actually give someone money. And you could, in other words, Kurt couldn't be entrapped into killing me unless he's really serious about it, which means that he's really serious about it. So you had the predilection. So that's sort of, I think that's why the predilection mitigates against the defense of entrapment, because we're saying, look, you're saying you were joking, but if you were joking, you wouldn't be tendering money to get it done. So you wouldn't be able to be entrapped. And that's sort of, so if there's two different directions he's going to try to attain this objective, again, it's hard to say he doesn't have a predilection towards getting her killed, and that there was seriousness behind it.
Yeah, so this doesn't look like it. The Whitmer case looks closer to it. It was enough at least to get my attention, to raise the question in my mind. So that was which you normally don't see. People yell entrapment all the time. Most of the time, I'm like, no. But it was enough for Whitmer to get my attention.
There's also a concept that she doesn't hear me, does she? She doesn't hear me. You do. Okay. So I'm gonna share with you that
I hear you. There's just a delay. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. So there's my first year of law school, when we had to do a legal brief, I was taking a legal writing course, and the topic that we happened to cover, which is why I know a little bit something about this, is outrageous government conduct. Is a concept that was developed in a case, I think in the 70s. I don't remember the name of the case because I'm going back to literally first year law school. But basically, that even though the general rule is what we've been stating, that if someone has a predilection towards a crime, that you cannot rely on entrapment, that's your standard entrapment defense. But the Supreme Court opened up a concept that when there's outrageous government misconduct towards entrapment, that even if someone has a predilection toward a crime, conceptually, there could be cases where that predilection would not stop them from raising the defense of entrapment. Meaning, let's say someone really has, we consider it's definitive. We consider it definitely proven that someone has a predilection toward a crime if they've committed a crime in the past. So if someone has been convicted of being a drug dealer, and then they get out of jail and they're living a healthy, typical law-abiding citizen lifestyle, and they get entrapped into dealing drugs again. So we would say, well, you have a predilection towards this because you've done this crime in the past. But in a case where there's outrageous government misconduct, for example, you have 7 different agents coming in there and they're threatening you, saying, hey, if you don't join us in committing this crime, we know that you're comfortable dealing drugs. You don't join us in committing this crime, we're going to cut off your fingers or kill your wife or something like that, and they bring you into this ring, that would be considered something like outrageous government misconduct, where it's not his predilection that's driving him towards doing it. And even though he has a predilection, you could rely on the defense of entrapment. There is a concept like that was raised by the Supreme Court. I think it was 1975. But so in theory, with respect to the Whitmer case, where you have a ring of 12 people and 8 of them are glow in the dark, that seems really outrageous, especially some of them are like the ringleaders and like, you know, they're setting up the whole plan in motion. They, even if some of the defendants had a predilection and were genuinely sincere about trying to cause harm to Governor Whitmer, it's crazy when the significant majority of the people involved in the ring are all federal agents.
Yeah.
And even if they had a predilection, in theory, they still could rely on defense of entrapment based on the outrageous government misconduct concept. But yeah, I've been rambling for a while, so I just wanted to share that concept with you guys.
Yeah. So and relatedly, in the Joe Exotic situation, what it sounds like from the statements that I've seen kind of leading up to them filing their motion for new trials, they're talking about how there's been so much government activity, so much government misconduct by the FBI it's similar to what they're alleging in that situation. So it'll be really interesting to read that motion when it does come out. I don't know if it's already been filed now that it's, you know, it's the day of, but I would assume that by the end of the day it'll have been filed. But yeah, so in that case, what I was going to say earlier is that they were trying to get his sentence reduced because of the fact that they sentenced him to 22 years. And so apparently the appeals court said, well, okay, the bracket that you assigned him into was 22 to 27 years. That's actually improper because of the fact that, these two claims, these two charges should be overlapping in their sentencing, because they have the same end that they are trying to achieve. And so that the Court of Appeals remanded it remanded it previously. And then last week, the trial court looked at, and they did a resentencing of it. And they were like, all right, so now the max, it should be just under 22 years, between 17 and a half and 20, just under 22. And so the court was like, okay, we'll resentence you to 21 years. So basically they were like, they got him a year is what they did. But so people are pretty pissed. The people that are in the Joe Exotic, the free Joe Exotic camp here. But anyhow, but yeah, so for their next attempt is they're going to try to get this new trial. And with those similar sort of arguments having to do with the FBI's over involvement in the situation, supposedly. So anyhow, let me get a few more super chats and then we'll move on to the next subject. So Britt Cormier says, Bites, why do you keep bringing the quality of the show down? I mean, having Uncivil is one thing, but letting Joe on is a whole new level of slumming. LMAO.
That's kind of harsh. That's kind of harsh.
It's a little bit harsh, but you know, Britt also loves to give hate super chats. So,
okay.
you know, I never take these kinds of insult super chats seriously from Britt. Nernith Arnoadad says Joe doesn't announce appearance on Discord, YouTube, Twitter, or locals again. How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man? #GriftVale.
That's true. It's true. I'm terrible at it. But in my defense, whenever Legalbytes ask me to come on, I almost invariably say, probably not 100% sure, but really good chance or something to that effect. Yeah. So, and then I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh crap, I'm supposed to be on Legalbytes. And I'll pop in here like 20 minutes late. So that's almost invariably what happens. So that's why by the time I remember, right? I mean, is that not how I respond if you look through the litany of our DMs to each other, That's the conversation. You can pull it up. I'm not embarrassed. I'll be like, yeah, I think so. Probably. What did I say yesterday? What was it? I was like, almost definitely. Yes.
You were like, I am almost definitely 100% in. And I was like, okay. And I remember thinking, like, at what point should I get confirmation?
No. That's confirmation comes like 3 minutes before like showtime or 5 minutes into showtime.
I'm going to interrupt at this point to say that I'm following Legalbytes grifting tips. I have opened up my own podcast, so my stuff is now available as audio, and I've also decided to upload my my stories to Instagram because they have that IGTV thing for longer videos.
What's Instagram?
It's a popular social platform.
It is?
Yes, very popular.
That must be one of the new ones.
Did you just ask what is Instagram?
That's one of those new ones, like
Gab. It's been around for a little while.
Oh, has it?
Yeah.
Has it? Okay.
Wait. You're not being sincere.
I'm embarrassed that like I don't even think I have an Instagram account. So like I only got a Facebook account 2 years ago. So
where all the thoughts hang out.
Yeah. Right. Is that where?
Yeah.
I think when you say thoughts, you mean thoughts, right? That's what you mean.
That's your preferred pronunciation, sure.
Maybe that's an East Coast pronunciation of thoughts. Yeah. So
how do you pronounce it, Legalbytes?
Thought.
There you go.
Hey, Nate Lawyer. Welcome. Happy to have you here.
What's going on, my fellow attorneys-in-law? How's everybody doing?
I am having internet issues, so be forewarned. I've been rather pixelated and very slow in my reactions and dialogue. So just so you know, that is something that's been happening.
Can I ask you something that Nate just reminded me about when he said attorneys-in-law? I always wonder why some attorneys have in their thing, it'll be like, Joe, it'll say like Joe Smith, attorney at law, as if there's such a thing as being attorney at anything else. I always wondered why.
Well, I mean, technically there is an attorney in fact, which is so you got that.
Is that what the point is? To say that I'm not, in case you thought my profession was I'm an attorney in fact, I'm not an attorney in law. That's why some attorneys specify that in order to make sure that
I think it's to be a pompous ass.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. It could also be tradition.
Tradition is definitely a strong possibility. Yeah,
like Esquire, right at the end of the signature.
I mean, I'll put ESQ at the end of my name.
I'll
do that.
I hope that somebody out there got the wonderful perfection of me responding to Joe with singing tradition from Fiddler on the Roof.
I see what you did there. I see the whole who day and night must scramble for a living.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, we got you singing this time.
Well,
we can almost never get Joe
I'll
singing.
do that. No problem.
I know. Z. Michael Gelka says, etymology of glowy. There are people who go around in vehicles with flashing lights, abducting people. There's been a few terms over the years. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense for where that came from. Because we were talking about, Nate, before you joined us, we were talking about Tiger King and how he's going for a new trial. They're filing a motion today. They just tried to get his sentence reduced. They got it reduced by a whole whopping 1 year. But so they're gonna try to request a new trial because of some kind of crazy Fed action, I guess that happened. So that'll be interesting to look at once that actually comes out. Britt Cormier says, if the defendants in the Whitmer case cannot get out of it because of entrapment, then it does not exist.
That's unfair. It's just it's a very, very high standard. You have to show that the government basically coerced you, for lack of a better description, into committing crimes. You have to show that they did something to overcome your will, is the way it's usually phrased in the case law, so that it was not really your decision. And that takes a lot. It takes the same, it's equivalent to arguing duress in some ways, that I committed the crime because of a threat against me. It's like, so it overcame my will, so I'm not responsible. This is an actual defense, by the way. But it takes a lot to show that it overcame your will and it wasn't really your choice.
Yeah,
So
it's an attack on the intent element, as you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah. So Christian Rennie says, did Portnoy stop at any time for clarification during any act of resistance or when the word no was raised? If not, can we consider that assault regardless to any previous agreements? Let's answer that in a minute when we go over Portnoy. I'm not sure is the answer, actually, because...
By the way, did you guys see the Scott Peterson thing?
Mm-mm.
No.
Okay, so yeah, there's an issue with Scott Peterson. He was convicted 20 years ago. We've got the Ghislaine Maxwell issue. One of the jurors apparently lied in a fairly severe way on their juror form, and so the courts are now struggling with that same issue in the Scott Peterson case.
Scott Peterson, like that was like over a decade ago, wasn't it?
It was 20 years ago. Yeah.
Like like I was a baby practically.
Yes.
Almost. Not quite, but like metaphorically.
Yes.
Interesting.
It was 20 years ago, and this information apparently has somehow just come to light. And so it's basically the same issue for Ghislaine Maxwell. So it's another.
What was the lie? What was the lie?
Oh, I couldn't remember exactly off the top of my head, but it was fairly severe, as I remember from my reading. But I don't remember exactly what it was. It was enough to get my attention.
Well, just so everybody understands too, usually interest of justice, there's no time limit on it. So, the court's justice does prevail in situations like this where you can show a conviction was unjust. You can pretty much bring it any time. So,
but they almost never work. Like, for example, in the Second Circuit, the rogue jury, the rogue lying juror on the voir dire has worked. I believe as of 2018, it had worked 0 times.
Wow.
In the history of the Second Circuit.
Yes, that's right. You're correct. I forgot that fact, but yes,
I think it might have worked once recently, but I haven't. When I was reading up on it, there was something I was reading from 2018 which said it had never worked. So, I just want to clarify something I said earlier. The outrageous government misconduct was brought up in dicta in U.S. v. Russell in 1973. So I didn't remember the name of the case. I wanted to just clarify that out for you guys.
Okay.
But So, and that also is something that almost never works, and a lot of defendants try and rely on in order to overcome their predilection issues when they're claiming entrapment. But so it's interesting with Scott Peterson that they can actually come up with something from 20 years ago to say that, hey, that a juror actually remembers lying. Here's the thing which might help Peterson, which I think Maxwell is going to struggle with, which is that when they're measuring to see, okay, why would we say that this lie merits a new trial? Because they won't be found innocent at best when you're claiming that a juror lied and should not have been on the jury. Because just to clarify for anyone in the audience who's unclear what we're talking about when lying. So when they're doing the process of jury selection, in many trials, not all trials, many trials, they'll have the potential jurors fill out a questionnaire, and then the purpose of the questionnaire is to establish whether or not they have bias, which will affect their ability to reach a decision based on the facts and law of this particular case. So if you're lying on it and you cover up some facts that are affecting your ability to judge the case fairly, so that would, in theory, create a basis to overturn the conviction. Now, it would never work in the favor of the state. So if someone is a rogue juror and they're trying to get someone off and they successfully do that, well, I can't even imagine. I'm fairly certain that it would be something that the state would not even be allowed to raise. Only the defense.
Yeah, because jeopardy attached.
Right.
So the state couldn't raise it.
Even though you would think jeopardy should not have attached, you would think that because of the fact that there's been bias, that's never been fairly decided. So you
were never in jeopardy. Yeah.
You were never really in jeopardy because this juror got in there. But let's just
that happened with the powder bar for Cocaine Cowboys, where the jurors were paid off. And that was when they said that they were never really in jeopardy because their jurors were paid off. So jeopardy.
Well, that definitely, yeah. If you bribe a juror or bribe the judge so the fix is in, that would defeat double jeopardy issues. So that you could retry that case. But just because a juror stuck through, I don't think it's going to work.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so let's think about this for a second. I'll give you in a hypothetical. Remember that guy who was shot, the white guy who was shot at a BLM rally? Like they snuck up on him and killed him, right?
Remember that? Like Oregon, was it?
Where was that at? Was that in
somewhere on
Portland?
the West Coast?
Oh.
It was somewhere. It was definitely on the West Coast.
I don't remember the
For
story.
some reason,
Go
I don't
ahead.
remember hearing about this.
It was a guy who was basically killed by an Antifa guy for being a white guy who was part of some prayer group or something like that, who was in the vicinity of BLM. I believe he was part of. There was actually 2 white guys that I recall being killed at various BLM rallies by Antifa. So here's my point: if someone is hardcore BLM, like really crazy woke, whatever, and there's a voir dire, and they lie about that intentionally for the purposes of getting on the jury. Now there's a trial that happens there. I don't know why that person, and let's say they're the head of some BLM chapter, and they themselves have been like really, talking about killing anyone who doesn't support BLM. That's the juror that gets on there by lying on his question. Now he succeeds in getting this defendant off. He gets on the jury and succeeds in getting the juror off. How would we think that jeopardy is ever attached when this guy was sitting there was sitting there in the jury and had zero chance he was ever going to convict on anything for the person who killed an anti-BLM person? So to me, it's the same thing as if he was bribed, and there's never been any jeopardy attached. And yet, I agree with what you guys seem to be indicating, which is the fact that probably the state would never succeed in getting a new trial because they would successfully argue double jeopardy. In other words, go ahead.
No, well, there's I like to call it the inference leap. And the first with the bribe, I'm paying you for a not guilty verdict. So there's no inference there, right? But in your retort, the inference would be that this person who has all these political motivations and even lied couldn't be fair, right? So even so I agree that the person making the decision would have to buy into the inference that person there was no evidence that could make that person convict that person. If you can, that argument could be made, but that I think is where you're trying to overcome, because it's just like if that person was like the BLM guy from the Chauvin case, and if you can prove that guy intentionally lied, right? He said he never went to a BLM rally. Then you got the pictures of him at the BLM rally or whatever with the shirt on. But if you can't prove that he was in the tank, like if you prove he got paid, he's in the tank. But if you can't prove he's in the tank, but prove he may be biased, then I don't think that's enough to overcome the standard that say that he was never in jeopardy. Because the argument on the side is he was in jeopardy, and now you're making an inference that everybody who's on that political spectrum, on that political side, is suspect.
Interestingly, this is almost like outrageous juror misconduct. It's the exact opposite perspective, where it's like you have to show this level is so high that it's not just that the government was entrapping, but there was or that the juror was entrapping the verdict, but it was really being outrageous in order to get past that hurdle. Which is, I think, what the Second Circuit essentially has basically said. In order to succeed, so what's happening in the Maxwell case, for those of you who are curious about it, and I've actually been criticized by some that I haven't been following up about the legal developments that have happened. Part of the reason I haven't been following up is because it's all been secreted away by the court. I can't read any documents. No one has access to anything. It's all under seal. In fact, that's one of the things that the prosecutors have said. Why is this under seal? Like, why is this whole discussion under seal? And defense has said, well, we want to keep it under seal because we don't want this juror who's in question to tailor his answers that are going to be coming up at a hearing based on the arguments that are being made here. So we don't want them to even see what our claims are. Otherwise, he's going to lie. But the state has been arguing to open it up and enable everyone to be able to see it. But the part of the reason that it's so difficult to succeed is because the only focus of the court, the only thing the court is permitted to focus on is the moment of answering the jury questions. Any steps that juror took later on, and this juror has admitted to taking steps that helped lead to Ghislaine Maxwell's conviction, that by basically testifying and saying, hey, I was a victim myself. This is what the juror said. I think his name is Scott or something.
He testified?
No, he didn't testify. In the jury room, he pretty much testified, or he supported the testimony of the victims by saying, yeah, these victims who don't remember, I'll tell you this much. I was a victim too. There's certain things that stick out in your mind very clearly, and other things become very, very blurry. And like, I remember the color of the carpet. I remember, you know, this and that, but there are other things that are very, very blurry. So when they say they remember certain details and other parts are blurry, that's exactly the way it works with victims. So this is what the jury was doing in when they were sequestered away, when they're trying to reach a verdict on Maxwell. All of that conversation, which he admitted to in interviews with reporters, that conversation is irrelevant for purposes of overturning this conviction. All that's relevant is what happened at the moment and what his intent was when he lied at the voir dire.
Joe, I'll even go further than that. The rules, the federal rules of evidence, specifically dictate that jurors, anything they say about deliberations is specifically excluded from any courtroom proceeding at all. So even if he says that the court can't, even if he was going to court and say this is what happened, they could not use any of that in any decision, because the rules specifically say juror deliberation, what happens in the jury room is like a black box. Whatever happens, unless you can prove somebody got paid or something like that. But otherwise, then yeah. So that evidence will never actually even see the light of day, unfortunately.
Interesting. That's wild.
Yeah.
That is pretty wild. Let me get some more super chats so we can kind of get caught up. And then we'll move on to a new subject. Abe Eckstein says, can we all agree that Carol Baskin would shift her hubby?
She did not.
No,
she did not. She did not. She fed them to Tiger.
You're not going to catch me on a defamation claim, because she's
I know, right? Yeah,
she's just doing Netflix. Carol Baskin's innocent until proven guilty.
Yes. I mean, you know, it's an interesting question, right? You know, whatever did happen to her late husband, or former husband, I guess you could say. But you know, if you don't have evidence that you can reasonably rely on, you know, it probably would be an actual malice standard here, because she is a famous person. She is very well known because of Netflix, you know, so, but, you know, still there has to be, if we were going to conclude something like that, we would have to have something that we could reasonably rely on, more than just conjecture.
I was expressing opinion. I was not basing that on any fact. I was totally expressing opinion. That under the advice of counsel, I'm going to clarify here the implied advice of my counsel over here, that I want to be clear. I was expressing. I'm looking at Nate. So I was expressing opinion. There was certainly no statement of fact. I have no facts more than anyone else has on whether or not she actually chopped him up.
I was there at the time.
I was there. I saw the body.
It was traumatic. This is why I can't go to the zoo anymore.
Yo, have you guys heard about this the I Am a Woman scandal with Adele? Have you guys heard about that?
I vaguely, yes, no. I saw vaguely, but I saw just all a headline.
All right, so just. All right,
sounds like a whole pile of stupid though.
So yeah, let me fill you. This is woke, crazy madness, insanity. Woke madness, insanity. So Adele at the Brit Awards, they used to have best female artist and best male artist. So they said, you know, why are we doing it that way, right? This is not like sports. This is not like running, right? You know, best artist shouldn't be gendered, whatever. It just should be the best artist. So they said, okay, we're going to make the best artist award. Guess who wins it? Adele, right? She wins the best artist award. So she gets up there, she got her award, and she's like, you know, I know why this award was changed, but I'm going to say it. I love being a woman, and I love being a female artist. Woohoo! And everybody's clapping and cheering. The next day on social media, she's transphobic.
What? Because she says she loves being a woman.
Yes,
she loves being who she is. She's accepting of her situation and who she is, and you know, like, and the situation that she has been born into and that she has worked into in her life. That's so ridiculous. You know what? Like, I am allowed to be happy that I am a woman. You guys are allowed to be happy that you're men. Andy's allowed to be happy that she's a dog because she can just lie on the chair like that, like a crazy risque little animal.
No,
Anyway,
the issue is that they're saying that because like she's making fun of them, and she's saying I'm a real woman. That's what and the trans women are like, we're real.
I'll say that.
I'll
say that she is a real woman. Yes,
she is a real woman. But
I'm tired of this whole transphobic thing. I am tired of it because if I have the opinion, which I do, that they are not women because they don't meet any definition. Incidentally, they can't provide a definition of woman. So how do they know they're a woman?
Oh, here you
That's
go
a
with
whole
the
set of
definition of
problems.
woman.
Yeah, no, it's like they can't even provide a definition. So how do they know they are one? But if they don't meet the definition of being a woman, that doesn't make me transphobic. It's just like you are not what you purport to be. I don't.
There's no.
I'm not afraid of you. What you're saying does not make logical sense. It is incoherent.
There's
Adele
no
is
human
transphobic.
There's no human on earth who's transphobic.
I don't know about that. There might be some people who are transphobic, but I don't like the term.
No, it's not. It's a made-up word. It's a made-up word. The origin of the term homophobic, just so you can understand. What I think the phobia is a Greek suffix for fear.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes.
So
and philia is for love.
Good job. So almost relevant.
Way to go, Joe.
So I love you, Kurt.
Okay.
So I feel you, Kurt. So
Just saying. Just saying.
So what? No. So my point is this: the origin of the term homophobia is that what does that mean? That you're afraid of gay people? No. What it actually is a reference to is that the reason that one is harboring, the alleged reason one is harboring anti-homosexual feelings, sentiments, is because they have a fear of their own latent homosexuality. So one of the reasons I have an objection to the term homophobia is, and labeling anyone who's anti-homosexuality as being homophobic, is the implication is that every human has some level of latent homosexuality, which is crap. It's not true. So that's why I never liked it with respect to homophobia. But I do recognize that there could be some people who have homosexual tendencies and are afraid to confront them. And that could be a motivating factor for their anti-homosexuality perspective. That is very different from the concept of transphobia, which is that people have a fear of their own latent transsexuality, which is ridiculous. There's no such thing. It just by definition. And that's why what I think is they're trying to imply that, similar to the concept of homophobia, that anyone who's anti-trans is transphobic, as opposed to saying, no, the reason I'm anti-trans is because transsexuality is a sexual dysphoria and it's a mental illness. So that's which is, by the way, what everyone, the whole purpose to being transsexual. And when I'm saying transsexual, I'm saying this different from transgender. I get these two confused, to be honest with you.
I think they're the same thing, to be honest. The terms are used interchangeably as far as I can tell.
But here's what I'll explain to you. Blair White, for example, is very different to me, where someone actually goes for surgery and goes through the entire 9 yards to try and change themselves, rather than a dude with a beard who puts on lipstick, a wig, and a dress.
Well, listen. Well, yeah, because
that's two different things. There
is a difference in terms. Transsexual, because this was the person that Eric had on. Transsexual is the person who went through I want to say the right term, gender reaffirming surgery. And it's not sex changes, gender reaffirming surgery, whatever. But anyway, who's going
as
through
opposed
that.
to transgender, which
those are transsexual, but transgender would be me putting on whatever and presenting myself as another gender, not the gender I was born with. So that's transgender. And now some people would say all transsexuals are transgendered, but not all transgendered are transsexuals. That makes sense.
The whole thing is made up in cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. How about that for a based opinion?
Yes, it is.
Hey man, I'm trying to figure out the logic. Dude, throw me away now.
But that's why I say no one's transphobic, because no one is anti-trans on the basis of they have latent hunger to put on a dress. That's ridiculous. It's most absurd thing imaginable.
I don't give two shits, by the way, what you do for yourself. I mean, you can do
amen.
You can do anything you want, but you are not going to impose on me. You are not going to impose on me. You are not going to make me say words you want me to say. You're not going to make me have beliefs I don't want to believe. You do you, and if it makes you happy, go nuts.
And that's why I'm saying you're not transphobic. Even if you're anti-trans, you're not transphobic because you're not afraid of some latent inner transgenderism you have within you, Kurt. That's my point.
So I think that generally speaking, when people say transphobic, what they mean is anti-trans.
I know
that's exactly what they mean.
But words are, yes, it is. But words are important.
For purpose, I agree. Important. Words are important. I definitely agree. I think that.
I mean, words are basically our craft, so words are kind of important.
We also can't just decide for other people how they interpret a particular word. So if the general trend tends to be a certain way that other people are interpreting that word, we can't change that and say like, technically you're incorrect. Yeah, okay, that's fine, but that's just not the way that most people are using it.
So that's my point in saying that bestialphobe. That means anyone who's anti-bestiality. That's that person is now afraid of their latent hunger for bestiality. Is that? I mean that's essentially it's the same thing.
I think the thing that you're not understanding with language. Words actually, and this is you'll hear this saying sometimes. Words actually don't have meanings, but they have usages because words are used differently over time. So, so the same word 10 years ago could mean something different, but then over time they turn into something else. So you're right though. Transphobic technically really doesn't mean if you break the word down, it means something different. But it's not about what it means, but how it's used today. So if it's used like the word, I forget, there's another word, but anyway, but this particular word is being used in this way. So even if you're right, technically it should be this, but common usage dictates how it's being used in the society.
You are correct. Yeah.
I think you're just disagreeing with me because you're a Semitophobe. So
nice.
Oh man.
Nice comeback. That was good.
So but moral of the story, I mean, if this is literally like all Adele said was, hey, I'm just happy that I'm proud to be a woman. I'm proud to be a real woman. You know what? I think that I haven't seen the video clip.
Is the song
I would say,
is that transphobic now?
I would say, she for most of her life or most of her public life, she's been a bit thicker, we could say, and so she got she had a lot of support from a lot of women for being very happy about her body
when she lost weight.
Yeah, they called her
very upset.
They called her a lizophobe
when she lost weight.
They called her a lizophobe when she lost weight. So
no, it's one of those things that like people got very upset because of the fact that they felt like she represented to them an example of someone who could be outside of the normal accepted standards of beauty, you could say, that was bigger than what is usually placed in a magazine, for example, and to love herself and be happy with herself and whatnot. And so people were like, well, what the hell? Like now you changed, and you were supposed to be our person, our shining light. And so, but for her, it's like, it's still very, I mean, she was like, screw you. I'm going to do what I want with my life. And it's for my health.
How dare you get healthy and reduce the risk of cardio disease death? How dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you?
We live in this stupid world where telling someone, hey, you know what? Losing weight and being healthy is a good thing. No, you're fat shaming them. Hey, you know what? Maybe saving some money for retirement is a good thing. You're poor shaming. Like, what do you can't give any advice without shaming the person. Like,
every decision that you make in life, you are discriminating against someone.
Necessarily.
Right?
Yeah. Every choice you make is discrimination.
Every decision is a discrimination. There's most discrimination in the world. Most discrimination in the world is actually legal.
Yes.
like listen, I discriminate against having sex with men, right? I happen to only have sex with women. That's I'm
and the hurt is real, Nate. The hurt is very
is real. Yeah. But that doesn't mean I hate men. No, you guys are cool. I just don't want to ever see you naked and be in bed with you. That's just the thing. But that's a personal preference, though, right?
I for one, am grateful, Nate.
My dreams are shattered.
That's
I mean, same thing with getting married, right? You're discriminating
That's
against
true.
all other people on the planet.
Yeah, what's wrong with me, right?
Let's listen to what the woke mob is
Okay.
getting. Is
Okay.
Woke mob
getting over one
sucks.
Excel. Here it is.
I want to say massive congratulations.
Discrimination.
citizens.
You're about to hear.
I've got so much love for you. I think you're absolutely. Dave, Ed, Sam, I'm so proud to be in your company. And I love being an artist. I really do. And I genuinely can't believe that it's my job. And real artistry, I know I've spoken about it before, but there's so many new artists here. England, the UK, we have so many incredible new young artists coming up. And never lose sight of why you are who you are. The reason people are into you is because of something you have in you. Don't ever let go of that, ever. Yeah,
Great message.
And also, you know, I understand why the name of this award has changed, but I really love being a woman and being a female artist. I do.
Lots of cheers for that, and now everyone's
really proud of us. I really am. Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's what's
That's
getting her
it.
canceled. That's
what people are upset about.
Yep.
That's what's getting her canceled. She's a transphobic maniac.
No, she also is against being fat, so she's a trans fat phobe.
Can you believe when I saw this? I'm like, is this real?
It's definitely real.
Real,
'Cause
but
the-
yo,
the
it's
woke mob
Her
sucks
speech
ass.
is perfect. It's
No,
perfect. It's literally, I am very grateful. I love my life. I'm very happy to receive this award. I love who I am. Like, okay, be yourself, because that's the kind of thing that people will love, and that's why you'll get success. You know, be the best part of yourself. It's just like, God damn it, people. Like,
That's hate speech
what is
now.
wrong?
That's hate speech. Here it is. Hate speech. Adults, I love being a woman. Brit Award speech sparks transphobia debate.
Man,
She's
Like, when
fucking hates.
I'm
Like,
like,
as
Belle,
I
I
will
just really
say-
want to say she's probably going to do some sort of quasi apology. You know,
I hope
didn't
not.
wanna
I
offend
hope not, because you
anybody.
know what?
I know.
Because
I
you know what?
understand my words
This
were
is
hurtful. And,
no.
You know,
Let
I
me
wasn't my
say
intent to
this.
hurt anybody, and I'm sorry.
that was Joe
I'm
Rogan's
feeling- I'm-
mistake. That was
Yes,
Joe
it was.
Rogan's
Hang on.
mistake.
Hang
Well,
on,
I
hang
don't
on.
know if
Let
it
me
was
let
or
me let me
not,
say
but
something
we
real
can
quick,
discuss
because
that.
this is, let me say something real quick about this, because this is literally what they're saying is by virtue of saying that you love yourself as a woman, you are therefore transphobic. It is therefore not allowed for any woman to love who she is. That is bullshit. Complete and utter bullshit. And I
You
will
sound
never stand for that.
offended as a woman. Are you offended as a woman? For
I
Adele?
might be feeling a little bit personally
I don't know if I
offended.
can be seen with this
I've never seen you
with
so
this
agitated.
transphobe
You're
here.
like,
I gotta
this
like
is
I can't be
bullshit.
on camera with this transphobe using the B word there. All that I can't. I'm sorry.
It actually is
I'm
offending you
objecting.
because they're like, I'm a proud woman too. What
She-
the
Let's
hell?
cancel Legal Bites.
Wrong.
Boo.
Wow.
Cancel
Wow. Everyone
Oh my
stop
God.
watching. Stop watching right
Nothing
now.
wrong.
This
She did absolutely nothing
this
wrong.
woman
And
up
I hope she
there-
never apologizes for it.
I'm
Yeah.
positive she will. I am positive she will. If Joe Rogan apologized, Adele is definitely going to apologize. So much of her income is based on the woke crowd. There is no way she's not going to apologize. I would be. I will bet.
Well,
any
she
of
didn't
you right
apologize
now
when she lost weight.
$1,000. Okay, I will bet any of you $1,000 right now that
Yeah,
she
she's going to
will-
apologize.
She's going.
But what is she apologizing for? To be unhappy that
For
I'm a woman?
anyone,
Like, what the hell?
she'll do
I'm
the
How
same way
do I
Joe
apologize?
Rogan
said
did it.
that was
I'm sorry for
offensive, and I
anyone who was
realized blah, blah,
offended.
blah.
I didn't mean to offend anyone, but some people clearly were offended. To those people, I apologize. Yeah.
So
It's
I'm
basically-
proud being a black man, and if
No.
people are offended out there by it, I
That's
gotta
okay, 'cause
apologize for that.
That's okay. That's okay because you're black, so that's okay for you to be proud of that.
Well, I said man too, so maybe
Yeah.
it is. So you
yeah, but if I say I'm proud to be a white man, that,
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
nah,
that's
come on.
that's
Get it
that
off
is
the thing. This
basically-
racist. Get this
that's-
racist off the screen.
that's basically like putting a swastika across my face.
The irony.
That's essentially what I'm doing. Yes,
Yo,
I'm putting. Yeah, that I'm the one. Yeah, I'm the. Just picture a big thing right here, right now, because I said I'm proud
my
to be a
gosh.
white
No,
man.
but this is how insane our work world has gotten. Where if you get on stage and win an award and says, I'm proud to be who I am, and it happens to be a woman, then they're going to try to cancel. They're trying to cancel Adele for saying she's proud being a woman. That's
Which
where
means
we're
they're
at.
trying to cancel women. They're trying to cancel women.
This is
how dare she? How dare she talk about?
No,
how
I think they are
happy
trying to
she
cancel
is.
women.
So
I think this is really true of the whole trans movement. Is they are completely diluting what it means to be a woman, because it doesn't. I mean, as we saw, at least when I covered it on the Dr. Phil, when they asked those trans activists, "What's a woman?" It's like,
by the way,
can't define
it's both. What you just said is so correct, Kurt. It's both diluting and diluting. It's both.
Nice.
It's both. It's both. But please continue before.
No, it's all these men who are now competing in women's sports and blowing away every record. It's like, if I just suddenly declare I'm a woman, because apparently it requires no criteria, so I can just say it and it suddenly instantly becomes true. Yeah, I can suddenly be a world-class athlete too. It's amazing. But it's so they're basically erasing the definition of what it means to be a woman by turning it into nothing. And so it's wild.
Yeah, no, I'm hoping the Olympics introduces a new sport of how far away I can piss on a tree, and I'm going to enter as a woman. So,
well, you know what? But at least one thing, I think this is going to start showing the ridiculousness of this whole. I can't be proud to be a woman. I can't be proud to be a man. I can't be proud to be a woman, because someone else may feel offended by it. And I think Alita's right on point when she said they're essentially trying to cancel being a woman. They're essentially trying to cancel being a woman. I'm proud to be a woman. She should never work again and get off stage. It's like, what?
Brit is so accurate here, because I literally walked in.
Britt Cormier says Joe is lucky Bites was late, so it looked like he was on time.
Yeah, I walked in. I literally walked in
because of my internet issues.
What's going on? What's going on? I don't know what's happening here. This is weird. I'm like in a Legalbytes infomercial. This is so weird. I thought I was because I thought you were 20 minutes in. I'm like, oh my god! I literally walked into a Legalbytes infomercial. She's gonna have me hold up. She's gonna have me hold up a Havoc glass or something.
Havoc.
No, but I will advertise the Dragon's Treasure teas.
Yes,
which I'm in competition.
What's the Dragon's Treasure think about the trans issues? Do they make a trans tea?
I don't know, but they do. Today I'm trying Iro's Legacy, which is a green tea mix.
Nice.
What's going on?
It's still on your face. You got to cover your face with it.
I was gonna get
nice. That's good.
And Ravenclaw Riddle.
Tea. I was
gonna
cover
your face. Tea. There you go. Yep. Good.
The only reason I haven't gotten Dragon Tea is because obviously as a Jew I need to get a discount, and I can't figure out whether if I go with Legalbytes and I use her discount, then everyone's going to call me an Ericphobe, and if I go with Hunley, everyone's going to call me a bitophobe. So I'm torn which way. Joe, I can't do anything.
I don't want to cut you off, but what is that promo code, Alita, so we can get it on?
It is the promo code is all one word, Legalbytes.
All one word. Legalbytes.
Yeah.
So we go to that website. So which website do we go to? We go to which website?
You go to thedragonstreasure.com. Link is in the description below. In case you can't put everything together in the browser. So you can just click on that handy link. You can get in there, and then when you're in the checkout, you can put as a coupon code, put in Legalbytes.
Do we get updates about how the score is going here on this whole thing?
I don't know. I don't know if I can say I have seen how much I have been selling. It's been pretty decent, pretty good.
Okay.
I think I don't know overall for what, but yeah, Dragon's Treasure T says I'm trying to get caught up on super chats, but I'll read this one without showing it. Dragon's Treasure Tea says, you could have had your own discount code, free tea and free money, but you didn't sign up for this competition, Joe.
Yeah, I didn't want a piece of this competition. I didn't want a piece of this competition. I'm more than happy to support Legalbytes.
Yeah, I got a couple of sponsorship.
I will. I got to be careful for you. I don't want the money. I'll just shill for Alita. That's fine.
Yeah,
thank you. And Dragon's Treasure says that I'm in the lead, but Eric Hunley is continuously catching up. So don't let him catch up, guys. And it's also measured against the size of our channels too. So
but I'll tell you what, Dragon's Tea, I've said this before. If you start selling coffee, I'm 100% in because I'm much more of a coffee guy than a tea guy. I do like tea. I do drink tea, but I'm way more into coffee, and so I'll pimp that.
Same.
So.
Same.
I'm a religious coffee drinker early in the day, and then after, obviously I'm on a different time zone than you guys, but after like 4 p.m. I can't drink any more coffee, so that's usually when I switch to tea because it's way less caffeinated.
Yep.
So
this is very true.
Yeah.
And Dragon's coffee sounds like something I'd want to try also.
Yeah.
So.
It does sound like it would be fiery but mostly peaceful. So Seawall 728 says, "Hey Nate, what country is this?"
This is my country, Nigeria.
I love it. I love it. Julian Sabish says, "Glowy is deep internet lore from the schizophrenic Terry Davis, who would rant about running over glow in the dark CIA." Not going to read that word because that's what people have been getting into trouble for. Very interesting, very entertaining rants. Love your content. Thank you. I appreciate that. Warren Lee says, if I read it correctly or read it correctly, Strawberry Shortcake juror lied about being a pregnant DV victim in the trial form. So that was the Scott Peterson case, I guess.
Yes.
That's that's kind of a big deal to say that you were, because that was what that whole case was about.
I couldn't remember the exact thing. That sounds right though. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Britt Cormier says, "Joe, I would draw a line of something I did to make sure the fix was in. The other is the state did not do their research to get that person off the jury. One I am responsible. The other, the state made a mistake."
Well, it's not, since both sides kind of picked the jurors. So it's not like the state has the responsibility, right? It's
True.
And they don't really investigate jurors after they're picked unless you have an issue. So
yeah. Logan Cisco says, "Peterson happened in my hometown, and I remember the sentiment about him locally at the time. Publicity wasn't the only reason for a location change." Interesting. Z. Michael Gelka says, go ahead.
Yeah. Speaking of which, on the Reeves case that is going to be on law of self-defense is planning on doing. He's planning on covering that, and he's invited the panel to join him. In fact, that's supposed to be later today. That trial's in the middle of voir dire, and they're only looking for a 6-person jury, and they started with 50 people, and they can't find anyone because everyone wants this guy to go to. Everyone in the town in Tampa wants him to go to jail.
You're talking about the popcorn homicide case.
Yeah,
right?
the popcorn homicide. Yeah.
Let's get into that next, right after this one.
Change your venue, baby.
Let me get some more
that
switches. I want to try to get caught
up. That's what it should be.
Z. Michael Gelka says, "The point of critical theories is not to create well-adjusted, happy people. It's a mimetic weapon, and so they hate Adele for being herself." Maybe true.
It's one of the weirdest things happened while I was on Twitter. I wish I can remember the person's name to give him a shout out. But so you guys know the Peter Dinklage, right? The little person from
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
So Peter, from Game of Thrones. So he got an issue with with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. He's like, dwarfs living in caves. Have I done nothing for the movement, right? So now it's about dwarfs. So the left-wing media has been trying to cover the story, but they're scared. They're scared to cover the story because they don't know if they're going to be canceled for using the word dwarf now if it becomes bad in 5 years. So they're afraid to say dwarf because they're saying we don't want to be like Joe Rogan. Like you could say the N-word or something in the past 5 years ago or 10 years ago that's an okay word, but then 10 years later you'll have a supercut of you saying it and then you'll be canceled. So now like TYT and everything is like, how can we cover this story? Because everybody's calling him a dwarf, but we don't want to be caught up 5 years later with a supercut of us using the word dwarf. That's how thick cancel culture has gotten for us now.
Yeah. I mean, I think for a while it has been, there have been people that will say like, don't use that word, use the phrase little people. To describe people with dwarfism.
What word?
Which word?
Nice. Trying to trap her.
Here it is. Here's them discussing it.
Oh, of course.
It's insane.
Lovely. The young Turks.
Oh yeah, this is a radical right wing here. I gotta skip an ad. I gotta get an ad blocker, even though I watch the ad so I can pay myself.
Perspective as well. Right. There aren't a lot of roles for. By the way, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to be super authentic and vulnerable here. I don't know if it's even okay to say dwarf. Like, is that okay? I don't know.
So,
I don't want this to come back to bite me in the ass like 10 years later.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So look, I had the same question, and the articles clearly refer to dwarves. Will they later change the rule? Very likely. Will they then have video compilations of us saying the word and hold us guilty in hindsight?
Yeah.
Of course they will. And so, am I referring to the left?
Of course they
yes,
will.
I am.
Of course you will.
And so it's an insane standard. It makes no sense. But since that's what you're doing with Joe Rogan, things stand, everybody is using the word dwarf. I guess we will too. So you can hold us guilty later and invent a time machine so we could fix it as well. Anyways,
they sound like a conservative show.
Oh, geez, look.
I
hate it when he says they'll hold us responsible. You are the they.
You are the ones doing it.
Yeah. We will hold ourselves responsible.
Seriously,
we're the ones calling other people out for
it. Now I feel such a hunger to put together a compilation of Cenk Uygur just saying dwarf, 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 dwarf.
So, I mean, but this is the thing, right? This is the heart of the matter, is that anytime we are looking at the past and ascribing today's morality to yesterday's morality, we're going to run into problems, right? Because we can't take things out of context. Sure, we can say, okay, it was wrong overall for our whole culture to refer to something in such and such a way. Okay, sure. But then you can't take one individual and say, this individual is a horrible monster for using this word. I'm sorry. You found their humanity. Congratulations. They're human, just like all of us. We're all going to make mistakes. We're going to say something stupid. We're going to say something that might get us into hot water at some point. You know, like
we might screw up the motion to dismiss standard.
You know, like it's just we're all gonna do something where we have to put our foot in our mouth and apologize for something, or maybe not apologize, but put our foot in our mouth at some point.
Never apologize. Never.
I know.
I do want to discuss.
That's exactly why I said
this
that.
issue a little bit.
Never apologize.
Okay, I definitely believe you shouldn't apologize to the mob for the sake of appeasing the mob. Correct. I definitely believe that.
I agree with that.
I'm not 100% sure about apologizing because you genuinely think you made a mistake. Because if you don't apologize in some way, you're giving in to the mob as well. You're letting the mob control you, right? So if I genuinely feel like I should apologize because I genuinely feel like I made a mistake, and I genuinely want to say I made an error and I regret the error, if I don't do that, in some ways I'm giving in to the mob because I'm letting them control what I want to do. So I'm not 100% convinced on that proposition. So if you have a strong opinion, I'm willing to hear it.
I think that it's an interesting point you're making as far as letting them control in the opposite direction. That you otherwise, the implication of that is you otherwise would apologize, but because the mob is calling for the apology, that's why you're saying no. So let's flesh this out. Is this something that you recognize was wrong before the mob called it to your attention, or are you first recognizing the wrongness once the mob is coming with the pitchforks and the torches?
I mean, for my money, you could assume it either way because I'm not sure it matters either way. But if you think it does, then
no, of course it matters, because I think that okay, yeah, fine. So first of all, if you're giving in only after, if you're recognizing the wrong because the mob, what is that? Oh, that's my son calling. He's coming from Israel.
He's like, we're getting our 5th vaccine shot over here.
Give me 2 seconds.
Okay, well, Joe will continue with his thought.
Well, you know what? The thing is, I think you can't be extreme on either side. You can't apologize all the time, and you can't do the other one where you don't.
There is merit to the never apologize position. But I'm not sure it's the right position.
But that's where you end up with the DJT reputation, right? Where it's like you to never expect an apology from Donald Trump ever. And there are certain strengths in that, right? Because he's always going to take a very tough position, and he's always just going to say, nope, I meant what I said and that's it, or whatever. Like I did what I wanted, and I wanted to do what I did. And you're right. There is some power in that, but then there are some situations where, it would have been much simpler if, like the situation would have gone away much, much faster. If you would have said like, all right, okay, maybe that was a little bit of a screw up.
So what I have to go because I take this call, but I just want to finish this thought. And that is, if you're responding to the mob by giving into the mob, all you are doing is you are emboldening the mob to say our methodology works. This is something that's effective, and we should continue doing this to the next person, the next person, the next person. So I think that there is a principled basis to say that even if you recognize you were wrong, that if you're going to issue an apology, you should have realized it before the mob came along. It's not like they should be calling this to your attention. If you really did something wrong, and you're self-reflective at all, and you look into like your actions, it shouldn't have been the mob that's awakening you to it. And if it is the mob that's awakening you to it, you probably didn't do anything wrong. It's probably more an economic decision or a fear decision. And what I'm saying is, all you're doing is you're emboldening the mob to just do it to the next person and the next person and do more and more of their stupid cancel culture. And they'll also take it as if that proves they were right, that even you're admitting that they were right. That's how they tend to take it, and they become that much more aggressive with you individually. So yeah, I agree with apologizing. Sure, we all are human. We all make mistakes, and we all do things wrong. And from time to time, we all need to own up to it, suck it up, and issue the apology. But if the apology is coming in response to the woke mob, that never ever ends well. That's my closing thought here. This call is gonna be like a half hour. If you're still going strong, maybe I'll try to pop back in.
All right.
Joe.
I thank you guys so much. It's always a pleasure seing you guys.
Always great having you.
Nate, what the heck is happening? What's happening with our lunch? What happened?
I don't know. You didn't get my text messages and phone calls.
I did.
Oh, all right.
I responded.
I'm like, I didn't get anything back. I'm like, yeah.
I responded. You were like, the last.
You would treat me like a fine bitch in the club. You were like, walking by. You were like you don't see me. Like, I'm like, oh, Joe.
I said,
give me a call.
Okay.
Give me a call.
No,
you're like,
what happened?
Call back.
No. I'm denying this entirely. What happened was this is what happened. Okay, the last we were at, because he said, I'm going to take you out to lunch. So I was like, awesome. And then I'm trying to find a place we can go to eat lunch, because in New York you can't like go into restaurants, whatever. And he said, I'll drive out to you in New Jersey. So I said, great. The problem is he wants to go to a steakhouse, and kosher steakhouses are not open lunchtime. They're all open dinner time, and he wants to do a lunch thing. So I said, if you want to do a lunch thing, we have to do that in the city. He's like, well, so then he said back to me, if it's in the city, well, in that case, that's public transportation, not my car, in which case I got to find a day when I'm using public transportation. And I never heard from him again. So this is not on me, brother. Not on me.
I'll set it up and I'll pick the spot.
I would meet you. It doesn't have to be a lunch, by the way. I'd meet you in a bar. We can go out for drinks, and that'd be cool. Also,
yeah, because I eat anything. I'm a black hungry man, so I have no diet restrictions for me. Well, actually, the person who's the hungriest is up here or above me.
It's true. It's true. I amaze Nate at my ability to eat pancakes for brunch.
I've never ate a full plate of that, and she cleared the thing. I was like, yeah, I've never even finished it. She cleared the thing, and I'm like, damn. Put it all. Yeah, it was
impressive.
It was.
Yeah.
All right,
we met up for brunch, and I think I had flown in the day before or something. Bye, Joe. See ya. And so I think I hadn't had dinner the night before because I was like so tired or something, like jet lag. I don't know. I can't remember. But basically, like, I just remember being very hungry at that meal. And that was fun.
Yeah.
All right. Theophrastus 3.0 says, I'm a lesbian trapped in a man's body. Do I get my own pronoun? How about my own emoji? I don't know about that, man. I don't know. Maybe some people would say so.
It's trans something. I just think now it's starting to become laughable. Like the adult thing is laughable. This TYT thing is laughable. Like it's starting to become ridiculous, right? And at the point, I don't think these people want to be laughed at. I think they want to be taken seriously. But this is not something I would take seriously, right? Even though I know I'm probably going to be be killed for the comments I've made today. But I'm not, it is what it is, right? If you're not making sense, I'm not going to say you're making sense. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. So
yeah, for sure. Rick Cormier says literally no longer means literally. Just saying.
Hey, that's true.
It's true. It's true.
Literally,
Provolone loaf. Yeah, Provolone loaf says. Maybe I should have Nate read this one. I feel like it'll be better.
This is unbreaded country, America.
I love it. Z. Michael Galka says Alita's discovering what men have experienced for 30 years. Welcome to equality. I believe that had to do with my comments about women being canceled. IWD says, you guys joke about the whole, quote, I discriminate against having sex with X, unquote, but Twitter's full of trans people threatening teenagers who say they don't want to have sex with trans people. I saw that. I saw that. And I think it's ridiculous because I think that anyone can determine who they are attracted to and who they are not attracted to. And that includes physical qualities. I'm sorry. I don't think that anyone should have to apologize for that, whether they're straight or gay or whatever. I don't care. Everybody gets their kicks in some way, and I'm never going to shame them for it, for who they're attracted to or what they're attracted to doing. I mean, unless somebody is getting hurt and there's a situation where there's a minor or there's somebody who's not consenting, that's when we've got issues. But beyond that, I think that the whole argument of like, there's something wrong with you if you are not attracted to someone because of a particular physical characteristic that they don't have that you want. I'm sorry. That's BS. That's complete BS. I'm getting very real with everyone today.
No, but just imagine that. Like there's some women don't like men with long hair. Some women don't. Some women don't like to date outside their own race. Some men don't like to date outside their own race. Yeah, facial hair. Like we're allowed to have some discretion. We're not, just anybody come to the bed. No, it's ridiculous, right? I'm not that liberal now.
because the other thing too is that, like, okay, there's a certain element to a lot of these activities that have to do with creating another generation, right?
That's true.
So some people want to have children. Some people do not want to have children. Some people would rather adopt children. Some people would rather have their own children through a biological method. So it's like, you can't fault someone for wanting that. Like, you cannot fault me for wanting to have my own children go through my own pieces. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and with my own husband, like, I'm sorry, no one is allowed to judge me for that, or judge him for that, or judge any of us for wanting something like that. That's complete BS. And if there's a certain reality because somebody doesn't have certain parts to make that happen, and that's just what somebody wants, I'm sorry. You have to, like, you either accept it or you move on or whatever. But like, you can't try to force someone to want something that they don't want. That's BS.
And then call them and say they're discriminating if they don't want it, right? It's just like, no, it's like, that's not discrimination. Not in the sense that you're trying to make it so. But that's why Adele can't say she's proud to be a woman.
Exactly.
Why she can't say it.
Yeah. Dragon's Treasure says, I'm proud of being a T-man. That's awesome. That's great. Christian Reddy says, seems like we can blame woke media for running clearly ridiculous stories to provoke intense emotions for clicks. Batya Ungar Sargan has a lot to say on that subject if you're inclined to read her. Interesting. And this is the super chat that I read earlier about Dragon's Treasure telling everyone that you could have been part of the promotion, but you're not.
Good luck, because I know selling products it's a tough game. It's a tough game.
Yeah. Theophrastus 3.0 says sophistry. Google it. We are drowning in a tsunami of sophistry. It was invented by the folks who forced Socrates to kill himself.
Yep.
Yeah. Jackson Kai says, apologize privately to individuals all you want, but to a mob on a witch hunt is an admission of guilt. Could be. I mean, that's how Joe feels about it. All right, let's talk about the McCloskeys, because we talked a little bit about morality and how morality can change and over time. And so I think that it kind of fits into the McCloskeys, because if you guys remember, that was the married couple. They're both lawyers that were at home having dinner on their patio with their daughter. BLM was going on in St. Louis, and so they were in a wealthier part of the suburbs of St. Louis. There was a BLM march that was headed for, I believe, the mayor's house, and there was a group of people that decided to take a detour, and they went into not just a neighborhood, but a gated neighborhood. It's a private neighborhood, and broke through certain gates so that they could go into the streets here of this neighborhood. Now, normally a street is it's public, right? Because it's like any kind of a normal avenue, a normal, main street or whatever. It's open to anyone. Anyone can technically be there. I mean, unless there's some sort of a curfew pandemic that is, whatever. Certain things that sometimes government officials try to enact, but whether they're legal or not is a whole other issue. But anyhow, so typically any sort of a street is going to be open to the public, but if it is a private neighborhood that is gated off, it is technically private property. So this group of people were on the street, but in a private neighborhood. And so the McCloskeys, they had their famous, photos of them. You can see they're on the thumbnail of them holding their firearms out at people, basically saying like, hey, don't come over here. There's been a lot of rioting and looting and whatnot going on, and don't you dare come onto our property because we're ready to defend it, essentially. So they were criminally charged for that, and I believe they ended up pleading guilty and then were pardoned by the governor because it was a state crime. So it was the governor who pardoned them. Now, because they are lawyers, their law licenses are under fire. So it was reported earlier this week that their licenses were initially suspended by the Missouri State Bar, but that they decided to not actually, they kind of walked back the suspension and put them on probation for a certain amount of time, at which point, assuming that they have no other issues, that they'll reinstate their licenses fully. So the reason, the way in which somebody's law license is suspended or they're put on probation is when they have a certain thing that they did that was wrong, that usually involves some element of moral turpitude. And that is the case in Missouri as well. So moral turpitude it's this term that comes up every once in a while, and it's so nebulous and so difficult. So the question here is whether or not that act of aiming their firearms in the direction of other people on their own property, whether or not that involves moral turpitude. What do you guys think?
No.
Point of well, it sounds like almost any crime would be considered moral turpitude, right?
That's the problem, is that like if you ask somebody, if you ask 50 different people, you might get 50 different answers based on which crimes involve moral turpitude and which ones do not. I mean, I was looking up some case law on this, and it's like it's so wishy-washy, right? Because it's like it seems like the best definition that I've been able to find is here. Actually, I'll share my screen here so that you guys can see what I'm looking at. All right. Okay. All right. So here from Cornell Law School, a phrase that describes wicked, deviant behavior constituting an immoral, unethical, or unjust departure from ordinary social standards such that it would shock a community. I mean, but that's like it. Even still, like that's so wishy-washy. Like what does that even mean, right?
I have no idea what that means.
Well, you know what? I'm assuming they're trying to. Well, I'm assuming they're trying to go for like the federal rules of evidence when it comes to propensity evidence. Yeah. If you are convicted of fraud or something like that, that shows that you can use at any time, right, to show that the person's what's it called, the ability to be truthful, right? So if I committed fraud or one of those type of crimes, but if I committed a simple assault, then you can't use that because that has no bearing on my ability to tell the truth. That just has about, so this I think is just too broad in a sense because the argument is every crime. Well, but that's technically incorrect because the law is not a moral vehicle. Mm-hmm. So committing a crime doesn't mean it's immoral. That just means it's unlawful. So
Yeah, we talk about the difference between morality and legal all the time.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's why, like, it's people have also talked recently about in the Joe Rogan situation about, you know, his contract with Spotify might have a morality clause. So if there's a morality clause, it might involve some kind of a term like this, like moral turpitude. It's like, you know, if that's the case, it could have a very broad definition that's just up for interpretation according to whom, right? Who? Spotify, Rogan? Who gets to decide that in that kind of a case? Unless they have it a bit more narrowly defined, like, okay, what kind of moral turpitude are we talking? Are we talking, you know, like massive infidelity? Are we talking, you know, racism? Are we talking, you know, like what would we be talking about if there's, like, you know, moral turpitude? You know, I think a lot of times, usually when lawyers get disbarred, usually it involves some kind of mishandling of funds. So there's some fraud or embezzlement. So, like, there's a certain deception that's involved in those kinds of crimes that lawyers typically get caught up in when they are disbarred. But so, you know, you could say that deception is an element that could be in that category of moral turpitude. I think violence maybe would be another, like if there was a particularly violent crime.
Possibly, because then it all depends on whether it was spontaneous, whether it was planned, that type of thing. It seems to me the thing with the ethics rules is that there's also that catch-all about bringing what's it called, shame to the profession. Right. And I think this what this moral turpitude goes to. They were essentially charged with simple misdemeanor assault, but the context in which that assault occurred, they're trying to say they're racist. Right now, they obviously weren't racist. You got a whole bunch of people coming onto your property, breaking the gate down, and they come out with guns and like, get the hell off my property. That's not racist, right? There could have been a whole bunch of white people out there. So it's not, they were selling it as racism, but it wasn't racism. I do think, though, that I think that when you go back to their issue, it seems like the state bar is saying, because this was that type of issue, this type of newsworthy issue, then we're going to suspend you because you're bringing this negative attention or negative light to lawyers in this profession. And that's what may have gotten them caught up. So it sucks because some people say, well, that's not fair. Well, the problem is that your law license is not a right. It's a privilege. True. It's a privilege to have and the rules around it, even though they have to give you due process, the rules around it is very is unique in the sense of, you know, we don't have to commit any crimes to lose our law license, right? There are a lot of things that are a lot less than crimes that we can lose for even things we say. I can say some things right now, and my law license could be in jeopardy. So it's that type of thing where you're not representing only yourself, but also the profession in a certain way.
That's true. That's true. If we want, we can add a little bit more nuance even. So this is from a federal court in Pennsylvania, United States v. Zimmerman, where they kind of go through, I mean, it's from like 1945, where they go through moral turpitude. But like one of the things that they said is that, let's see here. The authorities are in agreement, however, that moral turpitude is evidenced by an act of baseness, vileness, or depravity in the private and social duties, which according to the accepted standards of the time, a man owes to his fellow man or to society in general. It has been said that moral turpitude implies something immoral in itself, regardless of the fact whether it is punishable by law. The doing of the act itself and not its prohibition by statute fixes the moral turpitude.
Okay. So Adele's saying, I am a woman, she would lose her law license. based on today's standards, right? It's outrageous.
It's so scary. It's so scary. The idea that I could lose my both of my law licenses, because it's like once you lose one, you can lose whatever other ones you have, you know, because they all kind of connect together. So yeah, that's the weird part.
California and DC. Oh yeah, you're screwed.
Well, you got to report to whatever. If you get hit in one jurisdiction, you got to report to the other jurisdiction. So you got no choice.
Sure. So, so interesting.
Licensed in Utah or something, they won't give us reciprocal discipline.
So I don't. Yeah, I don't know that I would. I was really trying to think on this case with the McCloskeys. I don't know that that's a situation that involves moral turpitude.
No, of course it's not. But the fact of the matter is that they're going to say, well, today's times, BLM, you're white people, you got guns, you're racist. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're taking a hit.
Yeah, I think probably. So so the reporting that I saw, there was a statement that they made that they were like, we're going to go along with the probation or whatever. Like we'll play nice kind of, but they were like, but we also think that this was not moral turpitude. And I think I agree, because it just seems like, I don't know. Like if this involves moral turpitude, almost every single crime involves moral turpitude. Like there wasn't even any physical harm to anyone. It was technically an assault, right? It wasn't a touching. It wasn't a battery. It was they created fear, apprehension of a particular.
It's happening.
Yeah,
just so people know,
is assault.
No, because some states, like here in New York, we don't have battery, so everything is an assault. So the way some states, like Minnesota, even does this too. The way we separate between assault fear and we call one assault harm. So assault fear is I point a gun at you.
Okay.
I have assaulted you, assault fear. And assault harm is I shoot you. Then that's harm.
Because you have an actual
and you can have both.
Harm. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you can have both. You be charged with one, I pointed the gun at you, assault fear, and then if I shoot you and harm you, then you got assault harm. So you'll see them stack like that.
Interesting. Brooke Cormier wants to know, does accepting a pardon constitute an admission of guilt? If it does, did their admission screw them out of a career? So their pardon. So in order to be pardoned, you have to be somehow convicted.
No.
So I think. What?
That's not accurate. That's not accurate.
No. Oh, I'm wrong.
No.
Okay.
Well, at least in the federal rules, federal rules, you can pardon them anytime. They don't even have to be charged.
The Confederacy, for instance, the Confederacy was the Confederacy. All the Confederate soldiers were mass pardoned, and none of them were ever charged.
Okay. I see. Okay, because I thought that was why they pled guilty in this case, was because they knew that the governor was going to pardon them.
The state rules are different. So the state rules, some states demand that you are convicted before you're pardoned. So I think that in that state they had to be convicted before they were pardoned. But in the Fed, the president can pardon you for crimes that you haven't been charged with as of yet. It happens all the time. It didn't happen with Trump. There were a couple of people Trump pardoned who hadn't committed any crimes as of yet.
Okay. So then, all right. So then my answer was going to be like, there just was a natural progression. So somebody was already convicted if they were pardoned. But so then does accepting a pardon constitute an admission of guilt? I don't think so.
There is one U.S. Supreme Court case which kind of says it in dicta, that acceptance of a pardon is acceptance of guilt. I'm not sure they actually meant that when they wrote it, but there is one U.S. Supreme Court case that, at least on its own plain terms, says it. But yeah, I don't really buy the concept. I think it's more accurate to say that by accepting a pardon, you accept that the implication you might be guilty rather than the fact of guilt. Because only a guilty person would accept a pardon, kind of thing. But either way, there is a sentence from the Supreme Court that says apparently yes.
Yeah.
So,
sounds like
okay.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, because it seems like there are many ways that an innocent person can still be convicted, right? Or a not guilty person can still be wrongfully convicted. It's happened many times before, right? So if you're like, I know I'm innocent, but I also know that the evidence that's out there is thin or something, or the evidence that supports my case is thin. I don't know. I feel like even if you're innocent, you can accept a pardon.
Yeah, somebody was asking
that's me talking
about,
as a lawyer.
Someone was asking about Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon is a good example because he was charged on the We Build the Wall scandal, and then Trump pardoned him, but he hadn't been convicted. They hadn't even gone to trial as of yet. So, yeah, you can definitely pardon people without it.
I guess that makes sense then. Interesting. So let's revisit Dave Portnoy a little bit. Oh, what's up?
Well, no, you guys go ahead because I have to go. It's almost 2:00. I got a little meeting that I have to run to.
All right.
It's always great seeing you guys. I will see you guys hopefully next week or soon.
Yeah. It was great having you here. Thanks, Nate.
Take care, guys.
So I guess we obviously for anybody that watched our live stream yesterday, people could see mostly Kurt and me and a little bit of Nate also going through the complaint by Dave Portnoy against Insider. So we'll just touch on it just for a little bit of TLDR because we definitely spent enough time going over that complaint yesterday. Kurt, have you thought about that situation since our live stream yesterday?
Not in particular. I mean, I'm kind of still where I was yesterday. I think there's some problems in some of the complaint. But I think with respect to the filming elements could potentially be a thing. I think there's some good defenses. So, I'm open-minded, but my initial answer is I don't think the lawsuit's going to go anywhere. But I'm not saying that definitively.
Sorry, my internet glitched out on me when you were saying. So you don't think that the lawsuit is going to go anywhere? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I think ultimately it will fail based on what I know at this moment.
Okay. I think that I think I've sort of settled in on the claims about the claims about the violence of these encounters that he had. And okay, let me just make sure that everyone is aware of what we're talking about. So Insider came out with a couple articles, one in last November, one like a week ago, about Dave Portnoy having certain encounters with women that they allege got very rough and violent, started consensual, ended up not consensual at some point. And we talked a lot about consent and how there can be transitory consent, essentially. Like, you could be in the middle of an encounter, and if things kind of change down the road, somebody can revoke their consent if they gave it previously. And if they affirmatively revoke it, then any kind of continuing activity beyond that revocation is potentially problematic for the person that's continuing because they're acting without somebody else's consent at that point, regardless of whether they had given consent before. So in this situation, it's not clear that there were any situations that he had with these women where they actually revoked consent that they had previously given. But, in terms of a defamation claim, he's got an uphill battle to begin with because he's a famous person. He's very, very well known. So he's going to fall under the actual malice standard. He has to show that not only did Insider publish false information about him, but they did so either with knowledge that they were false or with reckless disregard as to the falsity, truth or falsity of the statements. So as to those encounters with the women, they talked to these women. They, probably saw receipts for certain flights that he had paid for at least one of them to come around. And so there's probably enough there for them to have relied on reasonably in order for them to escape liability as to those claims. But for the unlawful recordings, though, the more that I've thought about it since yesterday, the more I think that he has a claim with that regard.
Yeah. Okay. I think because the articles were saying like that because everything the article said, I think might be factually correct that he didn't in fact obtain advance permission. Now we know that's not required, but as a matter of law, but they're not saying it was illegal. They're just saying that he didn't obtain it. And so a person might think that that's illegal and might think it's criminal, but I mean, what they're saying, I think they might be in the clear based on my understanding of the case at this point.
Okay.
I don't think they have to go out of their way to say it wasn't illegal. I mean, they can just say that, they didn't obtain the consent in advance for filming. They didn't obtain a consent in advance for specific sexual acts. That's not necessarily legally required. But, as a matter of various people's opinion on what should be the rules, various people think that might need to be required. So, I mean, I'm not convinced that they said anything that's factually false, and I'm not convinced that that he can get where he wants to be. And I don't buy the invasion of privacy claim for 1 second. I don't buy that at all. I think that it's her text messages too, and I just do not buy he obviously shared it with her, and now it's hers to share. She doesn't have to keep it in confidence. To my mind, it's no different if he had told her the things and then she had gossiped to a bunch of girlfriends. Like, that's the same thing. She's communicating to third parties. I don't think it becomes different because of the scale. I don't think legally it becomes different. If you're gossiping to a bunch of your friends in a wherever you have 10 of your friends and you're gossiping to, or you're gossiping to the newspaper, I don't think the scale makes a difference.
Yeah, but he's not suing the woman though. He's suing the newspaper.
No, I understand. I was just trying to reason by analogy.
Yeah.
I
was
think
just
trying to say I don't think it makes it any different. Like, if you told your friend and then she starts telling people, is she liable? And I don't think the answer is yes.
But see, I think there's probably different standards for your average girlfriend and a big newspaper that's out there on the internet.
I just don't really think there are. With all possible respect, I don't think there are. I think it's one of those things where, to my mind, I'm not aware of any. And as a general default principle, the law treats everyone the same, regardless of other factors. So, that's not always true, obviously, but there's no difference that I'm aware of in defamation law where it would turn on the fact that the third party who's repeating it is professional, non-professional, a publication. I just don't think it makes any legal difference. I mean, it would make a difference in the damages. So if it was viable, it would make a difference that way, because the number of people that would be reading it would be a lot more. So it would make differences in the damage calculation. But I don't think it makes a difference in the underlying liability. So
all right,
that's my best legal
dig into
opinion.
some more research on that. I'm going to dig into some more research on that to see if you are more right on that or if I am more right on that. I am totally open to the possibility that I might be wrong. So, I think that because you and I covered this for so long yesterday, we can probably just give that a very light treatment and then turn on to the popcorn homicide case.
Popcorn homicide case, man. This is an interesting one for sure. It doesn't surprise me that they're having difficulty finding a jury, because if it's so outrageous that, finding someone who's open-minded, it's like, but yeah, I think we're heading rapidly to a successful change of venue. Change of venue is typically difficult. Most of the time they want to go through the attempt to at least form a jury. But at this point, with the amount of jurors they've gone through and the lack of success, I'd be definitely arguing or renewing that motion for change of venue. It's like, we can't get to where we want to be. There's no way. We can't get there. So we need to find a different venue. So I'm not sure where that would necessarily be, but
it's somewhere. So somewhere not in Tampa, I guess. So, so for anyone that isn't familiar with this case, this is a case that happened 8 years ago. So it was what, 2000
in the before time,
13. Yeah, and in the long before time, right? Long before we knew what the coof was, and before we were, living in a much more digitized world, where people were talking about NFTs and things like that. Anyhow, so this man, what is his name? Reeves is his last name. What's his first name? Curtis Reeves, right?
I'm not sure.
You know what? I have it in the description, because I definitely knew it then. Curtis Reeves. Yes. So
Okay.
he went to the movies with his wife. the greatest irony of this case is that, do you know what movie they went to go see?
Someone told me before, and I don't recognize the name, but yeah.
Lone Survivor.
Yeah.
Lone Survivor, about the Navy SEAL that got stuck in Afghanistan. Everybody else died except for him, and he had to survive until he got picked up again and saved, essentially. So it's just the terrible irony of like that being the movie in a situation like this. So anyway, they went to go see Lone Survivor, a matinee, and there was a gentleman with his wife sitting, I guess, in the row in front of them. And he was texting, and Mr. Reeves got very upset about that. And there's an age difference between these two, which I think is relevant. Mr. Reeves was 71 years old, I believe, at the time. And the other gentleman was 43, I think. So you have a certain physical difference that is probably going to come up at trial. At least, the defense is probably going to try to make it an issue. I don't know if they'll succeed, but they'll at least try to make it an issue. But anyhow, the guy in front of him was texting. He got upset. The guy told him to essentially F off, apparently. Mr. Reeves decided to leave, complained to management. He came back. He said something to him again, and then things escalated. The guy threw he took his popcorn, threw it at him. He threw his phone at him, I guess. And then Mr. Reeves decided to shoot him. So Mr. Reeves is a former cop, which is highly relevant because that's, people that we expect to be able to handle a firearm and use it reasonably and whatnot. And it just seems like this does not seem like a very good self-defense case.
No.
Yeah, let's get your thoughts on it.
No, yeah, I think the ultimate problem is that there's no. I just don't think that. How do you have a subjective fear of death or grievous bodily harm? Not a subjective fear of harm.
Yeah,
because that's obviously reasonable. A subjective fear of death or grievous bodily harm. How are you getting there subjectively? And I don't know how that works. And also objectively, it's like this is just not objectively reasonable in this case. There's an argument under the precise wording of the statute, which maybe definitionally makes it objectively reasonable, but I haven't read it super closely, but I just don't buy the subjective fear of death or grievous bodily harm.
I will say, I mean, I'm gonna keep myself, open in this case because I haven't seen the video, because there is a surveillance video from inside the movie theater, I guess, that they are going to be looking at quite a bit in this case, of course. So it'll be interesting to see if that kind of changes the analysis. Like the age difference could play a part in his subjective belief that, maybe this is a much, bigger, stronger man against, this man in his early 70s, that is maybe feeling frail or something. I don't know. But I don't know. It'll be really, really interesting to see what kind of evidence comes out at trial here, to show whether or not he's guilty. But based on my understanding of the basic facts going into it, I'm feeling a little pessimistic about his odds at getting acquitted.
Yeah.
Which means if he's convicted of anything at all, he will probably die in prison because he's like 79 years old now.
Yeah.
He might die before trial happens. I think
it's kind of what they were hoping for, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's been 8 years. I mean, since this thing happened. That's a long time. That's a long
time. I mean, I believe it's been the defense that's been trying to keep trial from happening, right? Because he's been able to, I guess, live a life on his own during this whole time, right? As opposed to spending all that time in prison.
Yeah,
he's been out on bail.
Yeah.
So, You know, it's essentially they've been kind of buying him time this whole time, so that he I don't know, probably gonna end up spending the rest of his days not free, even just with one conviction, like the lightest sentence.
Yeah, Florida's mean. I think there's like 10 years is probably the least he's facing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyhow, for anyone
but I mean probably what the law requires. I mean, I don't know how sympathetic I should be to that problem, because we sentence people to life imprisonment. We know they're going to die in prison eventually.
Yeah.
So we do that like all the time. So what does it matter if he's 79 when it starts, or if he's 29 when it starts?
True.
I don't understand that point.
Because the alternative is, I've thought about this too. Like if somebody is it better for somebody to be sentenced, you know, to a very long time in jail, you know, to be incarcerated for a very long time? Is it better for them to be sentenced in their early years, in their middle years, or their later years?
I mean, their later years would have to be the answer, right? Because I mean, you're going to spend those later years in prison anyway, right?
Well, let's say it's a 20-year term either way, right? So 20 years between 20 and 40, between 40 and 60, between 60 and 80, probably end of your life. You know, let's say average lifespan. Like that's like end of your life. I feel like it would be best at the end.
Maybe. I mean, maybe if you get sentenced young enough, there's some ability to rebuild your life, and you know.
I don't know, because those are your prime years for creating your life.
This is true.
You know, like you have so much like financial impact on the rest of your life that you're having to make up for 20 years essentially. You know, like it just you're at such a financial disadvantage coming out at 40 or at 60.
Have we ever discussed the death penalty before?
I don't think so.
Okay, I have some idiosyncratic views on the death penalty.
I will be honest. I don't know exactly how I feel about the death penalty. I haven't spent too much time thinking about it, so I may be working through some thoughts as we go.
Okay, I have a particularly very idiosyncratic view on the death penalty about wrongful executions. Okay. I think about the possibility of someone being wrongfully executed.
Mm-hmm.
And so is the possibility of a wrongful execution acceptable? To my mind, I don't think there's much difference between that question and the question of, is it okay if anyone dies in prison from a life sentence? So, you know, on the one hand, we're convicting someone of death. They're going to be executed. They're wrongfully convicted. A wrongfully innocent person has been executed. Okay. Is that any different than a wrongfully convicted person dying in prison from natural causes during a life sentence? To my mind, I don't really see the difference. Either way, you're dying in prison. Either way, you're wrongfully convicted. Either way, you're serving years. That I suppose the only benefit to life imprisonment, depending on your age, is you might have more life, but like, what's the quality of that life in some way? It's like, is that a life worth living if you're going to be in prison forever? So it's like, you know, let me put to you this way: if I knew I was going to be convicted and I knew I was innocent, also people who get sentenced to death get more attention to their case. So there's a greater possibility of that error being corrected. So if I knew I was innocent and I knew my options were life imprisonment versus the death penalty, I'm not sure that I don't pick the death penalty, because I get more review of my case. If it goes poorly, I die, but I was going to die in prison anyway. So I don't really quite buy that any innocent execution is worse. And people say, well, in the case of a life sentence, there's more opportunity to review that case. But it's like, is there? Because death penalty cases get so much more attention, and you know, I'm just not wholly convinced that on that argument. So If you want to say I'm an immoral bastard, then now it's fine.
No, not at all. We're working through these questions. They're very interesting. I think it part of it depends on how you view the manner of death in an execution versus somebody being able to die of natural causes. Like how much do you value that? And then also the other part of it would be how much you value the time that you would be able to spend in prison. Prison is a weird place, I will say. I have gone to depositions at prison, and it's like every time I felt like I needed to just like burn everything I touched because it was just a weird place.
Yep.
Like it made my skin crawl a little bit.
What is the value of a life in prison forever?
I don't know, but I've also heard some good TED Talks from some ex-convicts, talking about the lessons that they've learned from being incarcerated and how they've changed their life around. But I mean, obviously, this is coming from the perspective of somebody who was able to come out afterwards, which is different than somebody who is
a survivor bias problem
die.
There, right? Yeah, I don't think that is necessarily something you would bank on. I acknowledge that there are cases of people coming out of prison and living great lives and successful lives, but there's a survivorship bias problem. It's like, okay, those people made it, but how many people didn't, and how many people are just ruined? Lots more. So let's play the numbers and play it out.
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, like we already talked about the financial situation that people come out with, and the major disadvantages they end up having. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I have an answer for what I would prefer given the option. I think that my survival instinct says I would just want more time. But that's me at this point in my life. I don't know if I was a lot older and I was like,
go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say, like, maybe at a different point in my life, I would feel like, okay, but like, what kind of a life am I going to be living in this, in this hellhole? I might as well cut things short, Yeah.
Like, why suffer? I suppose on some level, because prison is suffering. I also think there's a bit of a moral cowardice element to life imprisonment without parole, because we've basically acknowledged this person deserves to die because we're locking them up forever, but we're too cowardly to actually do it ourselves. We're just waiting for the Grim Reaper to do our dirty work for us because we're too cowardly to actually go through our convictions. So we like to distance ourselves from it's like, well, this guy died of natural causes. Like, yeah, you're distancing yourself from the morality of that decision. Like you locked him in a cage until the inevitable end occurred. I think you're kind of just as responsible for that inevitable end as in the death penalty case. At least in the death penalty case, you had the courage to actually pull the trigger, as it were. And you had the conviction, you showed the conviction of your beliefs. So I have some idiosyncratic views. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, that's courage and conviction from one perspective, but maybe from another perspective, it's callousness and cold-heartedness, and to the humanity, that each individual has, and to allow them to live a life, even if it's not a full life, because it's not fully free, obviously, and not by any stretch of the imagination, because they are incarcerated. But I don't know. That's a very interesting topic. Thank you for bringing it up. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I'm going to think about this a little bit longer, but which is better for us to stand by as a society if they ultimately are going to have a similar result, if not exactly the same, a very similar result, functionally speaking.
there's something slightly odd about just to my mind, slightly odd about the argument that any wrongful execution is unacceptable. We should get rid of the death penalty because any wrongful execution is unacceptable. But apparently, any wrongful death in prison as a result of a sentence of life is acceptable. And I don't quite understand why. So, yeah. If you can figure it out, let me know.
I'm going to be thinking about this one. It's a very, very interesting. I love these more like philosophical, conceptual discussions. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. Let me get one more super chat. Gino, love the puppy. Thank you so much. She unfortunately left because I think she got interested in whatever the cats are doing. But Indy is usually my shadow around here. So she's usually featured on that chair right over there. So, is there anything else that you want to talk about before we maybe head out?
Not at the moment.
Alrighty. Well, this has been wonderful. I'm really glad that this didn't turn into a complete internet disaster that I thought it was going to a couple hours ago. And I really appreciate you coming and hanging out. I appreciate Good Logic and Nate the Lawyer for being here earlier. And of course, everybody that is watching and is in the chat, all the super chats and everything. I love everyone and I thank everyone for being here. I know that there's a lot of places where we can all be turning our time and attention to, and I always appreciate people coming and watching here. So anyhow, with that, if you guys enjoyed this and you haven't already, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, do all the great YouTube stuff. And if you haven't already, I don't know why you wouldn't be, but you should subscribe to Uncivil Law as well as Good Logic and Nate the Lawyer. Everybody is already linked in the description below. I did that surreptitiously when everybody was talking at one point. So it's already there. If you don't see it, just refresh the screen. and that should be about it. Otherwise, have a wonderful Thursday. Have a wonderful rest of your week if I don't see you before then. And maybe buy some Dragon's Treasure tea and save 10% and support the channel by using the code Legalbytes. And with that, I will see you guys in the next